when you make this shift, you'll start pricing your labor and your time in Bitcoin. Like, say you put 1 hour of your work into Bitcoin today, and then 10 years from now, someone else is probably going to have to work 100 hours to get what you got for 1 hour today. Time is very valuable. This is still an amazing opportunity to store wealth. And there is going to be the next generation or your grandchildren are going to be working exceptionally hard for a fraction of what you can purchase today with an hour of work.
All right. Anil Patel, welcome to Bitcoin for Millennials.
Hey, Bram. Thanks for having me, man. I'm psyched.
Well, I'm psyched that you're here. I mean, your stuff has helped me along the way. And I think it's really cool what you are doing. Like, you are really putting your skills to work for Bitcoin. And we'll go through some slides that you made, some educational material. But what I especially like about your content is that you are simplifying all these different concepts that touch Bitcoin without dumbing it down. I would say, like, the educated point still comes across, right? And I think there's actually kind of a trap when you're trying to dumb it down, because Bitcoin in essence is quite profound, as you might agree with, right? So that's what I really like. But in Bitcoin education in general, what are kind of like the pitfalls that you are seeing? Is that kind of maybe the dumbing it down, or just thinking that everyone already understands what you're talking about? Like, what are kind of things that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a really good point, is communicating to others as if they know everything you know, which is rarely the case. The other big trap is simply trying to sound smart, which I definitely fell into a lot, where I was trying to impress people that I knew all this information about Bitcoin rather than actually trying to help them get to another level of understanding. So it's just, you have to slay your own ego a little, because you have to meet people where they are. You have to not be triggered by any of their preconceptions. Because if you're genuinely trying to get someone to another level of understanding, it's not about you. It's just about them. Yeah.
I'm gonna try out the image sharing thing on here, but first I wanted to show this image that you created. Let me see, this one, the polymaths one. You recently tweeted, Bitcoin is for polymaths. With this image, it says systems design, Austrian economics, communication networks, game theory, innovation, mathematics, energy, and software. Now, of course, the kind of like meme in Bitcoin is everything you don't know about computers combined with everything you don't know about finance. Here you are showcasing a lot more. Do you also think that, like, this is one of the challenges that we have in general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you need to know a little bit about so many different unrelated areas to make sense of this beast that is Bitcoin. And it just kind of hits home the point that the learning is never done. You keep going forever. But the most useful way to spend your time is maybe, instead of going very, very deep down just one rabbit hole, be it economics or game theory, you kind of have to branch out a bit. You want to kind of understand how Bitcoin operates across everything from, as the monetary asset to as a communications network, to how the mechanics of blocks actually come together in terms of like an accounting protocol. So yeah, you have to go broad. You can't stay in your lane, so to speak.
And what were like the first topics that you touched or that you were familiar with, where Bitcoin kind of showed itself to you and you were like, oh yeah, I understand this part? And then maybe also, what was the first part where you were like, okay, this is kind of intimidating now that I have to understand this as well?
Yeah, this was very humbling for me, because I went through, your traditional business school Keynesian education. And so when I got to Bitcoin and everyone's telling me, oh, you need to go back to first principles and understand like microeconomics from a very solid foundation, I'm thinking, I've studied economics. I've got this. Don't worry. And to recognize I knew nothing, I had no idea what I was talking about in a field I was very confident about, made me go back and think, oh, I need to reassess everything. And that's kind of why I spent a good couple of years just trying to really hone the first principles that are essential to understanding Bitcoin, kind of these like foundations that you need to build your knowledge on.
It's interesting to hear your background, because my next question was actually about, the smart people problem, the yuppie elite dismiss Bitcoin problem. You've spoken about how even MBA grads and finance professionals have a hard time getting Bitcoin. Why do you think traditional education fails these people when it comes to technology, and maybe also what kind of mental shift should they go through, or what happened for you? Like what made you so humble, or what made you able to humble yourself? Basically, I think that's it, right? Like humbling yourself. That meme is more about, okay, just realize you just don't know anything basically about money and energy and all these things.
Yeah, it's a very big, broad question. For context, so I have studied at 3 different business schools on 3 different continents, and then I went to work for a business school as well. So I was in this bubble for almost a decade of my life, and the whole point of that process and that whole industry is about de-risking your career. There's not really any other goal. It's how do you give yourself, you're paying to guarantee a certain path, and a piece of paper that will give you access to certain walled gardens or industries. So the people going into them are generally, firstly, you're either confused because you're looking for a career change, you're looking for more certainty, and most of the incentive is tied to your future economic rewards as a result of going down this path. And the other is you're already on that path and you just want to accelerate your trajectory. But the end goal is the same. You're actively not looking to take risk in most cases for the majority of people that go down that path. So you're just not primed to spot something that fundamentally is a shift in humanity's trajectory, right? And a new monetary asset appearing in front of that group of people, their skepticism is going to be so great, their desire for that thing to fail, because otherwise it's going to, destroy all of the work they've put in. It makes sense that they would be either against it, ignore it, or continue to be ignorant of it. Yeah. So it's just a really unfortunate situation.
I think this is a different conversation, but you would think that academics or people that are close to academics would actually be constantly curious, right? Like that is the entire point of academic research, I would say. Like there is no final truth and everything can be questioned, etc. But I think your explainer of how this is kind of designed to put you into a certain job and keep that kind of like engine going, I think. And I mean, my daily activities in the trenches of LinkedIn, I think I'm also confronted a lot with people that, have all these titles, MBA, CFP, CFA, whatever, 20 years experience in finance. And they're like, it's a scam, where I think that's what bothers me most, in a sense that I'm just so surprised people aren't curious. That's I think, above all, it.
Well, they're playing a status game, right? And they need to not only increase their status, but they need to protect the status they already have. So if in front of their entire group, publicly, if they're going to embrace an idea that is very against the groupthink, that puts their current status at risk. So there's just no reason for them to do that publicly. Now, maybe I know people who privately have a very different opinion about Bitcoin than what they share publicly. And it's very intentional and it's very unfortunate. But it's just the incentives. So it sucks. Yeah. That's why you get why Bitcoin LinkedIn is so different from Bitcoin Twitter.
Bitcoin custody is evolving, and OnRamp is leading this change with multi-institution custody, eliminating single points of failure. Instead of relying on one institution, OnRamp secures your Bitcoin in a cold storage multi-sig vault backed by 3 independent custodians, where no single party can move your funds alone, providing an unprecedented level of security. Your assets are protected by a 100 million Lloyd's of London insurance policy, with all transactions fully auditable on-chain and only executed at your direction. This means complete transparency and control over your assets at all times. Beyond custody, OnRamp provides comprehensive Bitcoin services that include trading, lending, inheritance planning, and IRAs. You can view them as your private Bitcoin banking partner tailored to your wealth preservation goals. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or an experienced holder, OnRamp's approach helps you secure your generational wealth with unmatched security and peace of mind. You can sign up at onrampbitcoin.com and use code BRAM, that's BRAM, to receive $150 in Bitcoin after your first deposit. If you first want to learn more, you can also book a free consultation via their website to speak with one of their Bitcoin custody experts. Tell them you came through me, and they'll take extra good care of you. My American friends, I've got something for you. If you're into Bitcoin, you want to grow your stack in any way possible. What if you could do it effortlessly just by spending your fiat? The Gemini Bitcoin credit card is designed to help you do just that by giving you instant Bitcoin rewards on every purchase. Just use it like any other credit card and earn back up to 4% on transportation, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. There are no annual fees for this card and no exchange fees to receive your Bitcoin rewards. Sign up to get your limited edition Bitcoin Orange credit card and earn a $200 Bitcoin bonus when you spend $3,000 in the first 90 days. You can find more information and terms in the description below, or go to gemini.com/Bram to sign up today and start stacking effortlessly. That's gemini.com/Bram. You have to be to be humble to actually accept that you have no clue about what money is and stuff like that, right? And that's also why, with all the critics that you see, like how they talk about it or the words that they use, like it instantly shows that they didn't get beyond phase one, basically thinking it's a scam, right? That's it. That's it.
Yeah, there's only so much work you can do, right? I spent about close to a year researching deeply different kinds of scams, more specifically Ponzi schemes, and how it relates to central banking, and showing Bitcoin as the complete opposite of that. And no matter how many times I lay that out to someone, if they're not receptive, or you're telling them something that breaks their worldview, they're just not gonna take it in. But I'm glad I still experience skeptics regularly today. I gave a talk, and this is why I love encouraging people to read more history about when periods of innovation happened. And so I gave a talk at a conference 2 days ago, and I was comparing like gold mining and Bitcoin mining with like the natural ice harvesting industry before refrigeration. And that when refrigeration popped up, you had this whole incumbent industry that was very against it. And you compare them side by side, and it's the same playbook. 200 years apart, exactly same playbook, because humans haven't changed. It's just the technology around us is changing, right? Mm-hmm. And just the more examples you see of that, the more you're like, everything that's happening with Bitcoin's adoption curve and the trajectory it's going, it just makes perfect sense. Like, of course, this is going to happen.
Yeah, it's very important that people kind of understand the scale of the thing we're trying to do, right? Like, this is not the mini disc or the Discman or whatever, right? Like, that's not what we're talking about here. But maybe we'll get to that. I'll pull up just like the first slide. So our idea is you brought like 10 key concepts. We're just going to go through it. You just talk your talk. You talk about how you share it with people, how you illustrate it, and then I'll reflect on the drink and jam, and then.
Sounds good. I mean, this is just, I think, the most fundamental thing for people to understand is that, you're obviously spending most of your time out in the world trying to earn a living, right? You're exchanging your labor or work, and you're being compensated. And then you take your compensation, you have expenses and things you consume. And if there is anything left over, which I understand applies to less and less people in a fiat system. But if you have anything left over, that's your savings. And then if you have savings, you have a big problem, because now you can't use the default option, which is just keeping it in a piggy bank or under your mattress or in a bank account. You have to actually go out and be like a financial analyst and look at all your options, weigh them up, and make the best decision for you. So, this is why anytime the word hoarding comes up in relation to Bitcoin or in terms of money, to me, that's just a huge red flag of someone that doesn't understand this very basic equation. Because if you're against people hoarding, and hoarding is just another word for savings, by the way, you're basically saying you want everyone to live paycheck to paycheck, have zero savings, and be very fragile. Like, the whole point of having savings is to insulate yourself, your family, and actually become less dependent on the state. Now, the state obviously has very different goals. Maybe they want their citizens to become more dependent on them. Maybe that's good for them. But ultimately, I really find it hard to believe anyone could be against people having savings for their family for a rainy day.
If the money is being infinitely created and printed, then the money is also the money that you want to use for your savings is also infinitely devalued. So you can actually hoard more units, but if each unit loses its purchasing power, then you're basically going against the stream, or it's an uphill battle for you to actually create an amount that can buy you at least the same amount of stuff whenever in the future, right? Whenever you would decide to do that. And so, it's interesting that this feels so basic, right? But
yes,
I think this is actually
again,
what is distorted.
Yeah, you asked earlier, like, when you're explaining things to people and you assume they know what you know, this is something that you would think would be just common sense to everyone. But the amount of times I've had people come up to me after a talk and say, I never understood that fully. Just because the economy is so distorted and the fiat system has distorted people so heavily. But yeah, I loved what you mentioning the word anxiety, because savings is anxiety reduction technology in a way, the same way
Exactly.
Bitcoin is savings.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Okay, so if you understand that people who create more value in the world accumulate savings, and that they cannot save in the default option, which is their fiat currency, they have to look to other things, other scarce assets. I'm in Canada. I spent most of my life in Australia. The most common form of your piggy bank in these two countries is housing. And so you see that housing starts to attract value in excess of what it would otherwise command in terms of its market price, right? And this is the idea of a monetary premium. So it's the excess amount that an asset basically has built into it, because these additional units of currency kind of have to go somewhere. People are looking for a way to store their wealth. And then, obviously this is amplified by the fact that we're in a system where people can get exceptionally high amounts of leverage if they are going to put what they borrow specifically into a house. So yeah, just understanding when you see a piece of real estate valued at, say, $1 million, understanding there are two components to that price.
Mm-hmm. People are using homes as a substitute for a function of money, which is actually pretty wild that we're there, right? Like, that kind of signals to me that we're pretty far off the track of where we should be if we had a normally functioning money.
Yeah, exactly. And these are all just these terrible side effects. You've got a normal functioning money, well, people can save in it. They have less mental bandwidth going towards, investing. And then, your housing and other scarce assets don't command a monetary premium. So, people who want to purchase a house and that's really what they want to do, they're not battling against a cohort of investors who are equally, if not more, incentivized to look for somewhere to store their wealth.
All right, next one.
So this is really kind of putting those two ideas together. And this is also very much the thesis of, if anyone's read Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow. And that is when you have and this kind of ties back to certainty versus uncertainty more than scarcity and abundance, really. The more you understand how central banking works and debt-based systems work, and you do the math, and you understand that mathematically this number must increase in terms of the number of currency units in a debt-based system over time must go up, you realize that more and more of those additional units are going to be looking for other places to park. Housing is obviously the example most people seem to get most intuitively, but when you've got abundant money or ever increasing supply of money, it's going to chase these scarce assets, bidding up their price. And the inverse of that is having a finite supply money where it's completely known, verifiable, certain. Well, now you're looking to create value for others. And maybe that's by building housing to sell and put your profits or your savings into that scarce money. So when money's functioning, essentially it acts like a magnet. So before you had scarce assets, they're a magnet for all this fiat currency. And now you have Bitcoin as a magnet draining the monetary premium in all these scarce assets over time as it becomes monetized.
I really like this one. It made me think of an image that I actually created. I don't know if I can pull it up as this one. I don't know if you can properly see it, but I called this like the Bitcoin paradigm shift. So on the top left, you see people are incentivized to consume, right? Because fiat money, which has an ever-growing supply, is basically chasing a stable productivity. As you said, or I think has also been mentioned before, like if the reward that I can get for creating value is more and more, if more and more of this reward is created, my incentive to actually build something goes down, and my incentive to consume actually goes up, right? So there is no increased productivity because the reward is basically infinite, and people are not incentivized to be more productive. Whereas with Bitcoin, productivity is being put into the Bitcoin, basically. The productivity is chasing the Bitcoin instead of the fiat money is chasing the productivity. So on a Bitcoin standard, people are incentivized to build. And so a growing productivity is then chasing a finite money supply, which eventually also leads to prices going down, right? And so if we go back to your example here with the real estate, the idea is that if people follow me on X, they see that from time to time I update the average home selling prices in my country and price them in Bitcoin. They're going up last 11 years with 120% in fiat and down 99.7% in Bitcoin, right? So if you have these, like you said, scarce money leads to asset abundance, like more and more assets want to be turned into this Bitcoin. So that is why your purchasing power goes up in Bitcoin terms over time.
Yeah, and one other fundamental question on that is, if just think of giving someone a choice. You can move to two different countries. One, productivity is going down, and one, productivity is going up because people are incentivized to create value from one another. Where do you want to move? Yeah, and it just perfectly explains why Bitcoiners seek out other Bitcoiners, because they're they want to opt in to this, booming productivity economy.
Slowly but surely, people are figuring out that this is a superior money, and you cannot have everyone at the same time realizing that, right? Yeah. Because then I think we'll have some very big issues, but which are valid. But conceptually, I totally disagree with that, right? Like if I want to move to a better money, I should be able to do that. If there's no trust in the money that I'm forced to use, I should be able to do that. But that's exactly why they're cooking the numbers right in front of you on the TV, right? Yeah. Next one.
So this goes to what you're just mentioning now, is how does that shift happen from the bad money to the good money? And in the past, going from gold to U.S. government bonds was very controlled. It was done in a very controlled way. And by the way, this chart is global reserve capital. So you've probably seen images out there or infographics out there about global reserve currency and that changing between, from the, the Spaniards to the French franc to, the British pound to US dollar. Those are currency. The Dutch, sorry, the Dutch are in there. Yes, the guilder was very dominant for a big chunk of an important part of history. And so just making that distinction between currency and capital. Capital is what are companies, countries, and individuals like capitalizing on? What's the base layer of their, business, family, country, what have you? And so, it's kind of like going from sound money to unsound money to sound money again, with the US treasuries in between. And the line between the transition from green to orange is sloped because, like you said, Bram, you're not going to have just an overnight step function change. It would be incredibly chaotic. It's like someone yelling fire in a movie theater and everyone trying to get out at the same time, and it's just not possible. So, this is going to take decades probably to fully transition. But yeah, point of this is just to understand the difference between currency and capital.
Would you say that it is also easier? It's easier to go from hard money, from gold, to fiat money. Then that's less of a shock than going from fiat, mega paper money, back to a hard money, especially something that has an absolute finite supply.
Yeah, I mean, if you understand Bitcoin, it's global, it's permissionless. There's really nothing to stop people adopting it, and that will just happen gradually over time as people opt out of, saving in, say, government bonds. So going from gold to treasuries was not very difficult when everything was so centralized. Gold is analog money. You have to physically move it to trade. So, that transition could happen in a very controlled way by very motivated governments. The next transition, I think, is going to be a bit messier, a bit more dispersed, harder to predict, but it'll definitely be more gradual.
Oh, this one I really like. I saw this one before.
Yeah, I need to update this chart. Every time I go to update it, I keep having to reduce the scale. But let's go back to the idea of savings. And you probably find that different decades in modern history were kind of dominated by different savings vehicles. So let's say, hypothetically, if your parents' generation, if they maybe are boomers and a lot of their wealth was created or is currently stored in housing, it kind of makes sense that they're going to teach their children that asset should be their savings vehicle. And the same way bonds were, for the silent generation, perhaps. And so, currently it's fairly accepted that the S&P 500, so, a stock index in the US of the top 500 non-financial companies, kind of has become the savings vehicle for most of the middle class in the Western world, if you have access to it. And even with that chart, it looks a little similar, not as extreme, but, units of the S&P 500 kind of was like the savings account for the last decade or so for the middle class. And now as we move to Bitcoin, this chart becomes more important because this is how people are going to measure their wealth. And it's, I don't want people to get upset or feel like they've missed the boat because that's completely missing the point. It's just that when you make this shift, you'll start pricing your labor and your time in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And the more people that do that, as Bitcoin becomes like this dominant savings vehicle, replacing, say, a basket of stocks or a 60-40 portfolio or real estate, you just will start pricing your time in Bitcoin.
If you want to self-custody your Bitcoin stack, I recommend the Blockstream Jade Plus. I've been using this premium Bitcoin-only hardware wallet for a few months now, and I love its design and ease of use. What makes it stand out is its open source hardware and software, and Blockstream's unique genuine check, which makes sure that your device is authentic. No backdoors or compromises. You can connect with the Jade Plus however you want: Bluetooth, USB-C, or you can go fully air-gapped with its built-in camera for cable-free QR transactions. The metal case feels solid and the color screen is easy to read, and it connects with your favorite Bitcoin apps like Blockstream Green, Sparrow, and Electrum. Get your Jade Plus today at store.blockstream.com and use code BRAM to get 10% of your entire order. Let's talk about something that not a lot of people think about before it's too late. Where are you storing your Bitcoin seed words? Are they truly secure? I found my solution with Stampseed. It's an elegant all-in-one titanium plate solution with no separate pieces to lose or manage. Your seed phrase gets permanently stamped into pure titanium that withstands fire, survives water, and lasts for generations. Unlike shallow etching methods, Stampseed's patented tools help you to deeply stamp every letter for permanent readability, protecting your financial legacy. When you order a titanium seed plate from Stampseed, you can also upload a custom design or your logo to customize the back of your plate to make it fully personalized. Paper seed phrases are a disaster waiting to happen. Secure your Bitcoin with Stampseed for decades to come. Visit stampseed.com and use code BRAM, that's BRAM, to get 15% off your order. Yeah, why do you think it is so hard? I mean, we kind of talked about it, but I mean, when I see stuff like this, I'm like, damn, you know, if I didn't have Bitcoin, I would be quite intrigued to a degree, right? To see like, holy shit, like how is this possible? I need to work like almost 2 years to buy one Bitcoin, the most scarcest asset in the world. That doesn't seem like something that is attainable for me. So, you know, never mind, whatever.
Yeah. Well, firstly, like you shouldn't succumb to unit bias. The idea that 1/21 millionth of the money supply is like the right amount to own for someone kind of misses the point. Like, I really think the best way to think about Bitcoin is in terms of its current market cap altogether and what you personally believe the total addressable market for Bitcoin will be. You come up with a percentage. Maybe it's currently 2 trillion out of, you know, maybe 400 trillion. And you're like, oh, okay, it's half of 1% to where it will reach like full adoption or a saturation point. So there's a long way to go. And that's the point of the chart. If you look at the trajectory, it's basically saying you can buy Bitcoin today, and 10 years from now, like say you put 1 hour of your work into Bitcoin today, and then 10 years from now, someone else is probably going to have to work 100 hours to get what you got for 1 hour today.
Yeah.
So it's just saying that like time is very valuable. You know, this is still an amazing opportunity to store wealth, and there is going to be the next generation or your grandchildren are going to be working exceptionally hard for a fraction of what you can purchase today with an hour of work.
All the money you have today is worth the most today, and tomorrow it's already worth, you know, a little bit less, and the next week a little bit more, and then next year 8 to 12% effectively more, and on and on and on. And here you see a clear trajectory, which is up, when you think about the purchasing power of Bitcoin expressed in time. But, well, eventually you earn your reward by applying your energy and time, right? Like that's literally your productivity. So, this is an amazing chart.
That's the key word again. Like, going back to what you said earlier about productivity, is you see this chart, and all this is the greatest incentive possible for people to be more productive and create value for others. Mm-hmm. So everyone should be rooting for this chart to continue going up, because the world gets better the more this trend continues. Yeah, this is a very, very simple 2x2 chart. If you're kind of placing your wealth across two axes or spectrums, you know, you've got physical wealth, which is very much visible to everyone, and then you have digital wealth, which is largely invisible, or is like physically invisible. So, you know, you compare a building to maybe a stock on your trading app. And then the other dimension is mobile versus stationary, or another way to look at that is like non-custodial or custodial. Like, do you need someone else's permission to use it, or to move it? Now, we never had something that filled the lower right quadrant until Bitcoin was invented. And most people aren't going to really care or think about this, the benefits of Bitcoin in this way if you're from a very stable Western country. But then the opposite is also true, is that most of the world does not live in a stable Western country and maybe does have threats around their wealth being confiscated or risks of having to leave where they currently live. They will deeply appreciate portable, non-custodial wealth that is also invisible.
That argument of like it is not physical, so it's not real, is nonsense. But again, in the context of money, it's not a strange argument, right? Like they have had like a crazy marketing campaign, you know, cash is king, etc. Like, you know, gold you can hold, and the bills in your hand you can hold. And I think that is actually why people don't see the digital aspect of Bitcoin being valuable, because when they contrast it with real money should be tangible.
Yeah. And going back to maybe the real estate example, just encourage people to maybe think about where they live, and would you say your country is on an upswing, or things maybe, you know, degrading and things are getting worse? And if your country is maybe degrading, that you believe it's degrading, and maybe trust is declining, well, do you want a physical piece of property visible to politicians, visible to maybe other people who are trusting you less and less? And so there's also like social implications of having very visible wealth in a society with declining trust and declining standards. So I just encourage people to really think about that and the implications of that.
I always find it interesting when I see these videos where people flex their gold bars and they have like 30 kilos of gold bars or whatever. And I'm like, that is so not practical. But I think, you know, maybe that's me, but I was never interested in gold because I never understood, like, there I actually really saw the physical aspect is a burden. Like it's not a pro argument that it is a physical thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that usually comes from if you take your own family and maybe go back 1 or 2 generations, like, has someone within 2 generations of you had to flee their country for any reason? And for a lot of people, the answer is yeah. And you'll find that those people appreciate the invisible digital aspect of Bitcoin versus they would never consider storing their wealth in a gold bar.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, this is great.
Yeah. So this I put together. You actually had my mayor on your show, and this is a chart I put together to present to him and City Hall. And the point is to kind of map out all the different criticisms that get levied at Bitcoin. It's that we know, like, Bitcoin is well aware of all the possible arguments you can make against Bitcoin. That is nothing new. The way someone becomes a Bitcoiner is they map out all the different arguments against Bitcoin, and then they go one by one from first principles and see if they can debunk them. And then when they've debunked all of these arguments, which you could also go on a Bitcoin talk forum from 10 years ago, and someone else has already done this work for you. So, you know, you're not first to come up with any of these. That's how Bitcoiners kind of get forged. They have to do their own process of going through these criticisms and verifying them for themselves.
And another one that you don't have on here, so I like that. What if there's a nuclear war or a meteorite strikes the Earth, right? And then everything is fucked. You know, if you don't have a Faraday cage, blah blah. You know, EMP.
Yeah.
All, you know, the craziest thing that could happen. I think one, you probably have other issues than Bitcoin for some time, but then the same, as long as there are two nodes that run Bitcoin and they can communicate with each other, that could even be offline. It survives.
I love the, whenever I meet someone who gives the nuclear war argument, it's just like this bizarre moment where I'm like, oh, I need to give this like tinfoil hat back to you now. Like, Bitcoin doesn't become the rational ones.
Well, yeah, if this is where people ended up as their main argument, that's what I mean. Like, all these others are less heavy than that argument.
Yeah.
Right. So
you should just discount those people. That's not someone who's willing to engage and genuinely interested in learning more. You know, they're really just looking to defend their own position that they've dug their heels in. They've watched Bitcoin continue to rise for several years, and now they're just trying to continue to save face. It's going to collapse. I don't know when, but it will, and then you'll see.
Trust me, bro. Trust me.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. Don't verify.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, going back to like the critics or the skeptics, this Venn diagram, it helps explain why people miss Bitcoin, why they just cannot see it. And it's because they usually fall into one or of these two sides. So maybe they've done a lot of work understanding history of money. And usually the gold bugs fall into this category. And so if you deeply understand the history of money, but you do no other work in all those other fields that we kind of touched on earlier about Bitcoin being interdisciplinary, you're going to be very fearful, and you're going to think that whatever innovation occurs in money is just going to be crushed. Which, you know, history kind of shows you that it was. If you look at all the other past attempts at digital money, if you flip to the other side of the Venn diagram, the yellow side, you kind of have like the tech sector. And these are people, the most common argument they'll make is that Bitcoin is MySpace, it'll be obsoleted. Because they don't have the understanding of monetary history. So they're not looking at it as, you know, Bitcoin's sole use case or primary use case is as digital cash. So if you don't have these two pieces of knowledge, you're blind to it. You have to look at Bitcoin from both perspectives. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is why Bitcoin kind of hides in the middle of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I find it just interesting. Same for the tech crowd, like TCP/IP, IMAP, HTTPS, like all these computer protocols that some were just the first that were introduced, and they're still alive and used in the modern internet today, right? And so to dismiss that actually, I think shows a lack of understanding of an area that some people are an expert in. I'm especially fascinated with all the, you know, Silicon Valley tech bros that many of them are still fading Bitcoin, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense too, right? Because if your reputation is staked on I'm the guy that finds things that appreciate 1,000x, that's what I'm betting on, and in their mind they don't believe Bitcoin can do that, then it just gets crossed off the list of possibilities, and they look for the next best thing, right?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, well, that's why paying attention and seeing the signals is not that easy eventually. But yeah, so digital networks, that's a good one too.
Yeah, so this is like a kind of a term and thought that Saylor kind of coined around this idea of dominant digital networks. And if you've read his book, The Mobile Wave, he kind of lays out what was likely to happen. I think he wrote it in 2012, 2013. But the main point is that there's a certain threshold that once hit, it's pretty clear that the market has decided, and they're going to then redirect capital to that winning horse in the race. And if you tie it back to even like innovation, where you were kind of dancing around like the concept of creative destruction, and that there's this very clear tipping point in which more people are adopting this, and they're dumping their incumbent, and you know that's not going to get reversed. And so in the digital realm, what we saw in the internet era is that different verticals formed, and then different companies competed to dominate that particular application. And so to think that money's really that different, I think kind of missed what we just got to witness and had a front row seat to the last 20 years. So yeah, I think it was pretty clear that Bitcoin had crossed that threshold like a long time ago. And the fact that there's still debate today even is just insane to me.
All the technologies that were, all the digital monies that were attempted before, but also certain technologies that had to exist to eventually be implemented into Bitcoin. Like that's been, I want to say like a 40 to 70 year, probably more towards a 70-year exploration of ideas around cryptography and decentralization and stuff like that, right? So it's also not that Bitcoin is the first mover or something and therefore the one that's going to be disrupted. That is definitely not the case.
Yeah, and this is just to be a helpful, quick heuristic of, okay, at what point or dollar market value does Bitcoin need to be in your mind where you consider it's one, and there's no point focusing on anything other than that. So figure out what that amount is for you that it needs to hit in market cap. And then when it hits it, like you have to act. You have to actually act on that information.
Yeah, good point. Well, we're over 2 trillion now, and there's never been an asset that reached 2 trillion that went away after, right? So maybe that's an extra signal for people to pay attention. Yeah, and this is the last one. I really like this.
Okay, this is really just one around diversification, which ties into the previous slide. Is once a winner emerges, you don't need to sell your winner to diversify into like the second best, networking app or the second best retail platform, because the winner's just going to eat everything else. And now in terms of Bitcoin, and we're talking about money and eating monetary premiums, it's, well, once you understand Bitcoin and it's ticked all your boxes in terms of being the winner of the future, well, you would never want to rebalance your portfolio. You would never want to sell anything to buy a weaker monetary good, because eventually Bitcoin's going to eat that as well. So yeah, this is just playing to the perils of rebalancing.
Mm-hmm. I know. I see we have some slides. You are working. These were the 10 key concepts that we wanted to share. I think there are some slides about your new book, and I think also some supporting slides. But yeah, you're writing a new book. Could you tell a bit about what you're working on?
So if you've read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, it's a very similar feel to that book. Basically, there are a lot of great interviews with Michael Saylor, a lot of great podcasts. He's given a lot of speeches, and what I wanted to do is take the best parts from all these interviews, speeches, and tweets, and kind of condense them into one neat package. So this is really just the book I wish existed already. It didn't, so I went out and wrote it. It'll hopefully be out actually next month, or possibly October. It'll also be available totally free digitally. But it's just taking a lot of Michael's ideas around, going from how energy links to money, how money links to wealth, how wealth links to networks, and how networks link to Bitcoin. And it's full of visuals, a lot of great analogies and stories, but hopefully it will act as a guide for people to better understand how they think of money and how that splits into capital and currency.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, as I've mentioned, I will link to your, I think it's your Gumroad where you put everything on. So people can subscribe there and get all your other books and your other educational materials. So I would guess that's also where they can sign up to find this book or follow you on social. Okay, awesome. Is there anything else to add that you think we might have missed, or anything that is a recurring thing that you usually share when you're sharing these concepts with people?
Well, I want to ask you something, Bram. So you recently became a father. How has that reshaped your relationship with wealth, and how has that changed your time preference?
Wow, I love that. I think, well, this is my second child, so I know what this is like. But now sometimes I realize I have two children, which is kind of crazy to realize. I don't know if you have children, but like at some point,
two as well.
Yeah. You got two, yeah. So then I'm like, holy fuck, I have two children. But I was actually talking about this with someone today. I think understanding finance, economics, and kind of macro to the degree that I now understand it, which I think is way more limited than other people. I would not know what I would do when I wouldn't have Bitcoin, right? So I think Bitcoin actually gives me a way to not have this perpetual anxiety towards the future, actually have a very, very positive outlook towards the future, which I think is very beneficial if you have children, because if you have children and you're very nihilistic about the future, yeah, man, that must be rough. Like, I don't know what your days look like, but that's pretty depressing. And actually, the thing that I find more depressing is that there are even people, from our generation that decide not to have children because they think they cannot afford it, or they don't know where the world is going, and like just that fact, I find very, very messed up, because we kind of touched upon it today, but I think about it a lot, like the fact that we could have a value exchange in total freedom with each other. I propose something for 100 money units, and you say 80, and then I say no, 90 is okay, and then we shake hands. Then we kind of agreed upon this value exchange in freedom together, basically. But then the reward that we use in this value exchange is influenced by other people, right? That constantly make sure that this reward loses value, which increases my anxiety towards the future, which for a lot of people actually makes it so that they don't want to have kids, right? So the fact that something that is man-made can influence the biological urges that we all have to procreate, I think is just one of the most criminal things that has ever existed. So I think about that way more than I actually want, because I just see a lot of people that are kind of like give up, right? They're like, oh, okay, well, it stops with me. I cannot do anything about it. Where I think, no, you can actually do something about it. You can move to a better money. You can literally move to a better money. And I'll throw the question back to you, but like, it gave me so much, I don't like the word, but like empowerment. Like, I feel I am actually more in control of where I can choose to go. Doesn't mean that it's going to go great. I don't know what the outcome is, but I feel like I have a wider view towards the future. And so my options are broader. And again, I repeated that a lot, but it doesn't matter about how much Bitcoin you have or how much wealth or whatever. That's not what it's about. I mean, I've even spoken to 21-year-olds who have a small allocation, who got married at 20, right? And who are like super enthusiastic about the future because they're totally on a Bitcoin standard. Like, that is the point I'm trying to make. Like, look at those people. Look at those people. And that is real. Like, a better money gives you a better life. But how's that for you?
Absolutely. No, man, that's beautiful. I completely agree. You know what I've been noticing at Bitcoin conferences lately is every year the children's sections seem to just get bigger and bigger and become a bigger part of the conference. And so it makes perfect sense. And I think over time, other people, pre-coiners, will just keep looking at this group, thinking, well, what are they doing differently? So I think the proof will speak for itself over time. But bullish on Bitcoiners having babies.
Yeah, more babies. All right, I will ask you the last question, and I ask everyone the same question, which is, what is a core belief that you will never let go of?
The core belief that I always come back to is fundamentally, I'm an idiot. Um, it everything I do, or all like the content I put out, is just a result of me trying to understand that thing, and then just sharing like, oh, here's what I learned in that process. So, if I ever think I'm smarter than someone, or get a bit arrogant, Bram, I want you to come knock on my door and give me a wake up call, because you know I think that's what I love about Bitcoin is just the humility. They're all very high agency and low ego, and if you lose either one of those levers, I think you're in trouble. So, yeah, stay humble.
I think it is, I know that I know nothing. I don't know who that was. I think Socrates or Plato, one of the two. I know that I know nothing. I think that's the translation of that. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time, for your knowledge. I hope people found it valuable. And for everyone, if you want to find more educational content, go check out Anil's Gumroad. Everything is for free. You can use it in whatever way possible. So thanks again, brother, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Bram. Look forward to seeing you again. Okay.
Likewise. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can click here to find more just like it, and click here to find all Bitcoin for Millennials podcast episodes. Also, please like this video if you want to help shine a light on the message of Bitcoin, and subscribe to my channel to stay connected. I hope to see you for a next episode. Bye.